Joining us now, Cloudcroft head football coach Toby Hall, beginning the second year for him and the second year for Tularosa, running eight-man football. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Happy to have you with us. And I guess what I'd ask, what did you learn the most doing eight-man football? That was your first year coaching eight-man last year, right?
It was. And starting out, I kind of thought that it might be a little easier playing field for us, and that got proved otherwise once we saw Melrose and a Tatum and Magdalena and a Logan all on our pre-district schedule. So they kind of proved to us that it's no joke.
Yeah, there's certainly some exceptionally quality teams in eight-man, and there's a lot of. It seems like there's a lot of depth. I mean, how many different teams are that quality, and how difficult it is to make the playoffs in eight-man because they don't take as many as some of the other classes do.
Right. Yeah, they take 8 teams from the state in eight-man football go to the playoffs, and it's kind of a weird deal because district champions are automatics, and then I believe there's 3 or 4 at-large teams that get in too. And last year, all of those at-large teams came from one district. So even that last-place team in Melrose's district still went to the playoffs. So it's a little different from what I'm used to growing up in Texas. It was always 1, 2, and 3 of every district that went. So it's a little different. So you've got to be on your A game every game you play, whether it's a district game or non-district.
How do you feel like the community, got into the eight-man football part of it? I know you guys obviously had some struggles last year in terms of being able to play on your home field, but did you feel like the community, adapted to it and really enjoyed the eight-man football last year?
I really think so. Our first 2, supposedly, 3 home games were played either Mescalero, Alamogordo, or Tularosa. But our very first home game up in Mescalero, there was over probably 300 people standing because our bleachers were full. So community has really taken it in and supported it. It's pretty cool. I was impressed with at least the community turnout this last season.
Overall, the performance of the team last year, obviously you said you guys played an immensely tough schedule. District was difficult, and you guys played some real close games against your district opponents. When you assessed last year, what were your thoughts on it at the end of the season?
As our first year in eight-man, and then on top of it, Cloudcroft's track record in the past few years hasn't been so good in football, and we played 3 of the 4 teams that were in the state semifinals in pre-district, which is fine. It got us prepared, and we played pretty tough games, and we won a few games as well, but then we got into playing like Mountain Air, and, we won that game in everywhere other than the scoreboard. We had 5 touchdowns called back, another one called an incomplete pass whenever it, to me, honestly, looked like a catch in the end zone. And then we lose that one by 2 points, and that's a heartbreaker. And then the very next week, here comes Mescalero, and we're up 28-2 at halftime. And the next thing you know, we lose by 2 in double overtime. And it was impressive to me that Mescalero did what they did because they didn't give up. They pushed through and really did what they had to do to get that ball game won. And our boys kind of thought that it was in the bag there at halftime and didn't really show up for that second half. And so, that in itself kind of taught our boys, hey, you got to play 4 quarters. It ain't over till that final whistle blows. And so, that kind of was the decline in us last year, at least what I think kind of knocked us down a little bit, was those 2 back-to-back losses by 2 points. And in reality, that probably would have been determining whether we were in the playoffs or not.
I got to think big thing going into this year is you guys are going to be playing at home all year long. You're not trying to find a place to play for the first 2 or 3 games. How great is that for you as a coach, knowing, hey, we're at home every time this season?
It's going to be nice, just for the strategic, the planning around. We're not having to get out of school early. We're not trying to haul all of our equipment down to someone else's field. And the boys get to support and get to defend their house. That's going to be nice. And luckily enough, we have at least the first couple of games are I wouldn't say light games because you always got to take everybody serious in eight-man, but easier opponents than some that we've seen in the past at home. So that might be a good boost for our boys being able to win a couple games at home right off the bat.
And you also have a distinct home field advantage. You guys are practicing in the high elevation every week or every day, and there are some of these teams do also play in higher elevations like you guys. But that's a big advantage for your boys, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I was a track coach as well last year, and it's pretty obvious. Being able to train up here at elevation does have its advantages. Not necessarily. I guess it is harder for teams to come up here and play us, but it's amazing what lung capacity we have when we go to away games and be able to keep going compared to what others might be able to get done.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your team this year. On the offensive side, who do you expect to be your weapons for you guys to put points up on the board?
Alex Miller, right now we have him at quarterback. Him and Tyson Hughes, we have them rotating back and forth between running back and quarterback. We also have a kid that has decided to play football this year, and Sam McLean. Pretty tough kid. He'll probably play at that running back level. Cody Colliers and Ryan Merrill both playing at tight end position, wide receiver, whatever you want to call it in 8-man football. But we have a lot of speed and we have a lot of height. We're young. We're very young. Alex is actually our only senior actually shooting out right now, which is okay because, last year we only lost 2 starters. And so, again, this year we're only going to lose 1 to graduation. So we just continue to build, and the more we build, the more knowledge we have. So.
How important, that's one of the things with 8-man football in terms of your offensive line. It's a very spread out game, but how is it important for your offensive line to be successful for you guys to do well?
The offense we're running, it's key. It starts there. If we're not able to get our blocks with the line and do the schemes that we're doing, we're not going to be able to get anywhere. So luckily enough, we're pretty deep on the offensive and defensive line, actually. We should, if the boys do what they're supposed to do, we have the talent there to get the job done and be able to be pretty successful in the offense we're running.
I would imagine a lot of the same guys playing both offense and defense, or are you able to kind of platoon a little bit with your team this year?
In the secondary and in the specialty positions, they'll be playing both ways quite a bit. Not everybody, but quite a few. And then on that offensive and defensive line, we're able to platoon quite a bit. So that's going to be pretty important too, having those fresh legs.
Absolutely. We talked about the schedule you guys had last year. The schedule is still tough this year. District, obviously, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We know how good teams like Magdalena and Carrizozo were, and we're sure Mescalero is going to give you guys a hard time, as you would expect, with that being a rivalry. Is there any games on that non-district schedule you're really circling, or is it just trying to get the guys as good as they can be heading into district this season?
Yesterday actually we sat down and we talked as a team and as a coaching staff, and we went through our schedule team by team, and we decided what are our goals and what's our win-loss look like? What do we want it to look like, And going into, we go to Springer this Friday. We played a pretty good ball game against them last year, beat them 46-0, I believe. But they were big last year. Springer was big. I haven't really seen any film on them. I've talked to Mescalero's coach a little bit. They scrimmaged them. So I kind of have a scouting report on them, but that's about it. But they were big and they were pretty physical. So if we go in there thinking it's going to be pushover like last year, they could sure enough surprise us. But my boys count that one as a win. Then the very next week we go play Melrose, and Melrose dominated 8-man football last year, and they only graduated 2 seniors, so they're going to be really tough. We scrimmaged them this last Friday, and we held our own. It wasn't quite the shell shock this year as it was last year, too. The aggressiveness that Melrose has and just their level of play. So, they're going to be tough, but we'll hang with them. But they're going to be the team to beat in 8-man this year.
Yeah, it certainly seems that they're going to be tough. As for district, does it appear Magdalena is going to be the favorite in you guys' district again this season?
I really don't know. There was a lot of coaching changes in our district this year. Mescalero has a new coach. Magdalena has a new coach. Carrizozo has a new coach. And it's all hearsay, But, talking with Dickie Roybal, Melrose's coach, he and I had heard the same hearsay about Magdalena only having about 9 players right now on their roster. They were supposed to be at that scrimmage that we went to in Mountain Air on Friday, and they ended up dropping out of it. So it's until we see some game film, we really don't know what they're going to look like.
Gotcha. And I'm sure one game on the schedule, if anything, I mentioned Mescalero in there. For what happened in that game at your guys' place last year, I'm sure that's a game that the boys circled that they want to maybe get a little bit of revenge on the road later on this season.
Absolutely, yeah. We better go in there ready to play 4 quarters of ball, that's for sure.
What's your expectation for this team this year? I mean, obviously, you said you went through the schedule and looked at it. You feel like this group is capable of being a state playoff team this year?
Absolutely, I really do. We lost 2 starters last year, like I said. Robert Ortega, he was a great playmaker at that quarterback position. And then we lost a lot of leadership and heart with Mateo Vasili. But we have the guys that have stepped right up into those positions and are beginning to fill them pretty well. As we went through the schedule, our boys see us being 8-2 in district champs and in that playoff hunt. So
you're hoping that that's going to be the result of things, and we'll see you guys playing some football into November. So
that would be awesome. Sure, I told my kids my wife and I are expecting a little girl in November, and I told them I would sure like to have to rush back from having my little girl because we're still having football practice. So
fantastic. You're okay with it being a little extra stressful that time of year?
I am. I'm all right with that.
Fantastic. Well, Coach, we certainly wish you the best of luck this season, and we certainly do hope we're talking about high school football in Cloudcroft coming up in November. Thanks for taking the time out.
Absolutely. Thank you.